Hello, hello and welcome. Just gonna wait a couple of seconds to see if anybody else is joining us. And if you haven't seen me before, I'm Julio Unger. I'm the dean of the College of Performing Arts, but I recognize faces, so I know that I've seen many of you. All right. Don't worry, you won't miss anything if you're a couple of minutes late. I can vamp, tell jokes, something, but maybe tell jokes in Italian. Um, Everything okay so far? Have you seen some of the other presentations for Parent Summit? And there was one by our career advisor that I think was really nice. We're trying to do more of that, obviously, and make sure that, um, we have there's a philosophy, I think, that really is about trying to do more of that and trying to follow our students in different ways and in ways that are appropriate for performing arts, which is not the same as the business school or the uh, communications or the sciences. Every school is a little bit different that way, and we know that. Well, let me just say a few words about, first of all, I have to thank everybody who's been helping me here. I have a staff that is supporting, including my development coordinator, Bobby Reed, and Erica Evans. Jeremy is over there, Tamu from IS&T. So I hope that they'll keep me. I'm a technological idiot, basically. I'm on a need to know basis, and you don't ask me to fix your computer. So they're the ones who make things work. What I want to do today is actually to talk a little bit about this past year and the situation that we're in right now. One of the questions that I get asked an awful lot is, how do you cope as a College of Performing Arts with the pandemic? How do you cope with the restrictions? How do you cope with all the limitations that you have? And how do you keep this going? So I want to talk a little bit about production and what we've done and what we are planning and what we're in the middle of doing for this year, and talk a little bit also about what we did from the very beginning of this process, almost a year ago, to get ready for classes, and what we do in this semester, a little bit about the fall. And then I have to also give you some update on dance facilities. I just got out of a planning meeting with architects for the dance facility, which will open May 2022. And every time I talk to the architects, it's extremely exciting because they're creative. They have great ideas on how to use the space, which would be the old packing plant by the K dorm. And you see their ideas and you see what they think is possible. And they, you think you thought what was possible, but they make you really dream. And so that is one of the most exciting things I've been involved with. So I'll take you back to March 18th or 19th, I forget, 2020. And the day before, we were called into a meeting of deans and other administrators, and we were told, be prepared because probably after spring break, we won't be back in person. That would have been about a couple of weeks. The next morning, we got another message that said, we're gonna go remote tomorrow. This was a Wednesday. I started giving the news that, of course, was widely broadcast. The dance students were having a meeting, a master class at 12. So I actually walk over to the dance building, and now all the students are there. All the majors are there. And I gave them the news in person, which was probably one of the most difficult moments of my career, in that they were totally devastated. There was a concert coming up in like 10 days after that, 2 weeks maybe. They were working already on the spring concert, and you know, there were tears. There was a real grief. But they came together. They they let it out. They came together. The faculty was there. They all got together. They all sort of actually physically got together, almost like, which in retrospect probably wasn't the greatest idea, but it was okay. And they sort of got back and they say, okay, let's figure out what to do. And the same day, I'm walking back from that meeting, and in Moulton Hall, I cross paths with Michael Naring. Some of you know him. He's the theater professor, wonderful guy. Michael is a great teacher. And I stopped him and said, well, Michael, what do you think is going to happen? And he said to me, we are creative people. We're going to figure out what to do, and we're going to do the best. And actually, Michael is an example of absolutely wonderful teaching during the time of the pandemic. So there was a lot that went on. One thing that we couldn't do at that time, we had to cut down completely, cancel all of the performances for the rest of the semester, which was one of the most difficult things. If you had seen, for example, the sketches for the opera, for the staging of the opera, it made me cry not to have to say, no, we can't do this. Everybody was already working on that. It was going to be, without any question, the best looking performance I'd ever seen. It was a beautiful set. We had commissioned an artist to do video. So the back of the set was actually not just projections, but projections that were moving. So if you had the palm trees were swaying, there would be birds going around. I just couldn't wait to see it. And I still hope someday we get to use that. So that was really one of the most difficult things. So we had quite a bit of time to figure out what to do for the fall. And my staff and I spent the whole time from March through the summer. Usually I go to Venice in the summer. I didn't this year, obviously last year. And we stayed in the office and we work on these things. And we spent all of our time worrying about two things: how to make classrooms as safe as possible, and what to do about productions, how to arrange for virtual productions, and what would be the limitation, the situation, and so on. Some of it is out of our hands. OC Health decides some things and we have to follow, and other things we have a little more leeway. So let me tell you a few things that's really interesting. You saw part of the musical, that's a preview. We haven't broadcasted yet. And you think, oh my gosh, they're singing. Are they supposed to be singing? They're lip syncing. So normally, what do? We have the band, we have the students singing. What we had to do to make it possible was really something completely different. We had the band record all the tracks. So all were pre-recorded. Then we took the singers one at a time, or we can use people in pods. So if you're roommates, if you're friends and you stay together, we can have you together basically. And we recorded the vocal line on top of that. Then when they were rehearsing in Musco, what we were doing really is not capturing what they were doing, but playing the track so that it would be on time, that they could lip sync in time to that. And we weren't singing. And we had actually, for the Theory of Relativity, which is the musical, we had a COVID safety officer, which we pay for, to be there and to say, yes, you can do this, but you can't do that. Please do that. Please put on your mask now. There were always, we had 3 meetings with the Musco staff just to talk about safety on stage and around the building, and flow around the building, and who was supposed to be there, how many people in each of the spaces. And you know how big Musco is. We limited ourselves to about 30 people in the whole of the building. So, not only you have to do things in a very different way, you also have to think of all those things that we never had to think about before. So there was a lot of creativity involved, including our production staff normally is used to, building sets and so on. For a variety of reasons, we had some vacancies, so we hired part-time people who had experience in video, who could capture video. And so the second thing that you saw was the dance, where they did a fantastic job for what is normally the fall dance concert. Most of it was outdoors. We had a few indoor dances, either by people actually alone or people who were roommates and they were able to dance together indoors. Otherwise, but we went outdoors. So we were in a variety of locations, and I actually love what I did at the beach. And it sort of stimulated the thinking, okay, we are given lemons. Well, how do we make lemonade in this situation? And you notice those drone shots, for example. There's absolutely wonderful things that we did that were sort of brainstorming. Well, what do we do that would look good? Well, that would really look good. Let's go to the beach and do it. So I love the way that that this was put together. Even for the opera, the companies weren't there. We pre-recorded some things. We did the one that was in the dark was recorded actually in a black box theater, and the only person who was there when she was singing was the singer. Everybody else was in the booth, so she could hear the accompaniment, but there was nobody else around when she was singing. And the university helped a lot. I don't know if you know this, but every single building where we did anything has not just upgraded filters, but also UV light filters baked into the HVAC, and those are absolutely amazing. Plus, we got some air scrubbers, which was like big suitcases that are big filters, and we turn them on every time you were in recording so that they would clean the air, and we would take breaks and so on. Completely different frame of mind than what we usually did. Now, a lot of the work that was going on was also regarding classes. But before I do that, there are some photos I want to show you of, first of all, of dance, and a couple are of theater. So, Jeremy, if you want to start showing those photos. So that's another place where we dance, and was the top of the parking lot, which is close to the park, not the, it's close to the law school basically. And so again, outside, and notice they're wearing masks, and we did that. And the next one. Sorry, the next three we can show same thing. You notice they're wearing masks. You don't see them a lot because they're beige and so on. And then the next. This is from In the Next Room, which was the play we did in the fall. And because we couldn't, at the time, we couldn't do anything together, these were filmed separately in the rooms. Then we added the drawing, the staging for that, and we put it all together. So imagine having to film everybody separately, then put them together, have them interact with that. It was a major production. Our average post-production time, and remember, we usually don't do post-production. We usually have the show and then we're done. The almost post-production time range from 3.5 to 6 weeks of post-production for those. So you can imagine the amount of time that we spent on those. And the next. And this was from the musical. Again, in Musco is such a large space. And the only time when they were together was really for this particular thing, but we figured we had already built the set, the stage, and in Musco we could do a really fantastic job. And this is coming up in April. We are now in post-production for the musical, so in April this will be out there. And since we're at it, let's show the next picture as well. This gives you an example. So this is a back room in the back of Waltmar. So the projection room, we used it for storage. And at the beginning of this process, my production manager came to me and said, we really need a video production studio. And we got some money from the university. We used some money out of donations. And this is when they were working on it. And this is what it looked when they were done. The next one. This is now a video production studio. Here's one of the guys who's actually an alum, Luke Berger. He is the one with the red collar shirt. He's filming a Student for Equality, which is a play that is now currently being filmed. We have all kinds of stuff in there, including a mini stage where we can have a conversation. If I want to do something like inside the actor's studio, I could film it in there. And we did all that basically this summer in preparation for things that were to happen. Now, the truth is that, the next one, so the last picture, I promise. Green screen is your friend. This is how we did most of the stuff, including all of the stuff for in the next room. Everything was done in green screen, and then the backgrounds were added at a later date. Okay, enough for the photos. So over the summer, we spent a tremendous amount of time. I actually walk every single teaching space in CoPA with my staff. I personally did that. And we measure, we took an inventory of everything regarding technology. What do we need in every space? What do we need to add? What do we have already there? Do we have the right connection? How many people can be safely located in this particular room when we come back? And of course, we did all that, and then the beginning of the fall semester was remote, so that wasn't exactly the way we wanted to go, but it's okay. That's what happens. And then all of the work, though, was very helpful when we got back in person, because we had done all of that. We knew exactly for every space what was the number of people we could accommodate and so on. For example, in the dance studios, um, if you go in right now, they're actually square with tape on the floor. So those are square so that you're never closer than 12 feet, which was at the time the standard for that kind of stuff. And we managed, what our primary consideration was safety. We ordered a special singing mask for all of our singers so that they could have them for free. These are masks that are, they're like a mask on steroids. They have like a bandana that you can completely close, and then there's another part. They have a special set of stays so that they're off your mouth so that they don't stop you from singing. We had the faculty evaluate masks for dance, and then we order a whole bunch of masks just for the dancers so that they'd be comfortable dancing, but at the same time protected. So there was a lot of work, and honestly, I have to say, my two right-hand people were Peter Westenhofer, who is my artistic assistant director of artistic operation, and Mark Emil, who's my production manager. They worked like crazy the whole summer, and they were so creative in ways that we could come up with ways to accommodate students. So we were happy to be back, of course, and even though it was a shortened semester. And the productions, of course, we had already decided early on they were going to have to be virtual, and that, of course, meant changing everything. So the opera, we will film it in April, but you won't see it until later because post-production. We figure, hey, if it's not live, it's really up to us when we show these things. And as long as we can make it, and show it widely. And the plus, I think, for a lot of the students and for us too, is that we can put it on our streaming service. And if you have a relative in New Jersey, they can see it. They might not be able to come to the performance, but they can see it. And the same is true for prospective students. The same is true for friends of CoPA. So there are some pluses. It's not all minuses. The minus, in a way, was that we had to pivot really quickly and do a lot of work. The plus is that this also is making us think about something that we already were thinking about, which is we know technology is going to change things. And now we were forced to adopt it, up until last March, Zoom was like something that you see people going fast and you go, oh, Zoom. And now, of course, I live my life on Zoom. So you're forced to do that, but you can take things out of it and say, okay, how can we help what we're doing? And I have many of my faculty members saying, I'm doing this online and I think I want to keep that and give an assignment like this because I think it's really helpful to the students. And I love when they have that frame of mind, how they're thinking ahead. Now, you know that this semester we're supposed to be back in a formal in person after spring break, March 29th. That's barring unusual circumstances. The number in Orange County have gotten better. I was able to go to Dr. Chow, who's through our liaison. Dr. Chow is the head of OC Health, and allow at least our students to access practice rooms and dance studios. one at a time in the dance studios, one at a time in the practice room, but so that if they're around, at least they have some of that. But there are also limitations of the things we can do, and every time I have to go and ask for permission. But certainly we're looking forward to being more in person. If your student is not coming back, we're also going to do everything on Zoom, on hybrid, so that they'll still be able to follow that. Please don't worry. And in the fall, right now, it looks like we're going to be back in person. What that actually means for performances and everything, I expect that there might be some limitation. Right now, I tell people if I had a crystal ball, I would go play the stock market, but I don't. But right now, I think probably we'll be able to reopen performances, maybe not with 100% capacity. So maybe we say, okay, 45% of the normal audience, so 70% of the normal audience. But I think this is coming, especially as vaccination really helps. One last thing, we have been involved, as some of you know, in planning for a new facility for dance. And I'm so grateful to the university for two reasons. One is that many, you would think that during a pandemic with the budget impacted and with the money we had to spend and not get as a result of the pandemic, that they would put at least a stop or a pause. They did not. We're still going ahead full speed. We were given a wonderful naming gift of $5 million for the dance facility. It's going to be the Sandy Simon Center for Dance. And we're very, very proud. The Simons are great supporters of Chapman, and they're absolutely lovely people. And I'm really happy that they're the ones putting their names on the center. And the dance facility, if you've ever seen, when we can come back to campus, I'll have to take you and show you. It's an amazing facility. It's the old packing plant. It's all light and space. We're going from about 10 to 12,000 square feet right now, 12,000 with the annex, to about 32,000 square feet. So instead of having to walk, over and step over the dancers who are waiting for the next class, there's actually going to be room. We'll be able to have room for 5 studios, each one at least 2,400 square feet, which is what the accreditation agency asked for. A smaller faculty studio, a Pilates yoga studio, a health clinic, so that we can give first aid and also use it for rehab. We're going to have a conference room, 2 classrooms instead of 1, offices, and all of that is right on the quad that goes to the K. So that is an amazing ability to interact with the students, to feel not isolated in Partridge, which is kind of like its own little building, but to be together with everybody else and for the other students to see what we're doing. We're extremely proud of the dance department. It was just ranked by Dance US as one of the top 24 in the country. They don't rank within those 24. They just say, these are the 24. There are 3 of them in California, CalArts, USC, and Chapman. So that tells you how wonderful it is. We have 350 applicants this year. We hope to enroll about 35 to 40 for dance. So it's an extremely selective program. 75% of the freshmen come from out of state, from all over the country. It's a quality program, and I'm so happy that we have facilities that match what they're doing. Now I'm going to stop talking in a couple of seconds, but if you have questions for me, the best thing is to put them in the chat, and Bobby is going to help me. And if you put them in the chat and I don't answer the question, I will answer them later. I will make sure that I look at that since we are recording this and be able to answer. So any questions you might have, now's the time to type and ask. And Bobby will be the MC.
Yes. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and Julio will get to them and do his best to answer them. And as he said, if we can't get to all of them, we'll be happy to follow up with you after the fact, and there will be a recording of this for you to reference later.
And if I don't know the answer, I'll make it up.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Will the magic flute return in the future?
Well, I hope so. Not this year. because for various reasons, we know we can do it in person. So we actually this year we're gonna have a kind of an opera gala with a major major chunk of that will be scenes, maybe a whole act of an opera, but then some of it will be possibly some alumni coming back. This is not, I mean, I don't know that we made a big announcement yet. We will in the future, but Peter Atherton has been head of has been the opera director for 20 some years, is stepping down in that role. And so this is going to be a way of like having a big gala for him, and I really so would like to give him, some alumni want to come back and sing for him and so on. So it would be a combination of things.
All right, great.
All right.
Next question. What is the plan for choirs to resume practicing together?
That's a little bit difficult. I do think that by default it will be fine. Right now, some limited stuff we'll probably be able to do in the spring if it's outdoors and limited. I gain sort of a lot of knowledge lately by having to read a lot of different organizations that have been writing about safety for singing, and they go from including SAG-AFTRA, which is the union for actors, to specific groups that have to do with singing, to I just read one from Johns Hopkins University, the Peabody Conservatory. They had some not everybody agrees. There's a very sobering study from Colorado State where they did a lot of checking of emissions of aerosol. And the thing that is most sobering is not, and everybody knows we emit aerosol, everybody knows that when you sing and you do emit more of that. What they found that I wasn't expecting, honestly, and they weren't expecting, is the wide range of individuals. So they had a base line of this is the average singer emits X. Well, but then there were outliers that for whatever reason were emitting up to 10 to 12 times as much. And the one thing that they didn't have a chance to do yet is to figure out why those particular people were doing that. But in effect, if you sang just together with that guy, would be like singing close to 12 other people instead of just one. So there is a lot that we don't know, and we want to be, of course, extremely careful. It's possible to do some things, especially with the kind of masks that we bought for them. I don't have one to show you, but let me tell you, it's nothing like the mask you normally wear, and it's, I think, about it closes entirely around your neck, so there's less to escape there. It's completely closed around your face. It's triple layer. It's really fantastic. So I hope that will give us a chance for something like that.
Okay, great. Going forward, do you expect to do any digital delivery of performances based on what you've learned?
Yes, and we were thinking already about that. There's only two things that keep us from doing more. The biggest one is copyrights. So for example, when we do any play, when we did in the next room was slated to be in person last spring. So we had the rights to the play based on an performance in the theater with X number of seats. You have to give them all kind of information. We do X number of performances with X number of seats. Then we have to go back to the right holder and say, oh, now we're going to be broadcasted. And that raises the prices immediately. And so the only way that we were able to do it is to say, okay, we're going to broadcast it, but we're still limited to no more than X number of people. If we had said to them, we just want to put it on YouTube, it would have been impossible, honestly. First of all, they wouldn't have let us do that. Second of all, even if they let us do something like that, the cost would have been staggering. So for music, for example, it's very easy if you do our students performing the Brahms symphony in the public domain, go knock yourself out. You do a piece by John Adams, not in the public domain. And so immediately we have a contract with BMI and ASCAP, the grant, right, the the organization that granting rights, so that if you perform in person a musical performance, it's okay. But if you go to broadcast that, it's not okay. Then you have to ask specifically for another, it's a different set of rights. For dance, we need to get rights for everything that we do, even for the regular concerts. If you do it and broadcast it, then of course it's much more difficult. Now, we've done some things. For example, we're piggybacking on a universal music license that the Dodge College of Film and Media Arts has. We're paying like, I forget, a few $1,000s a year, $3,000, I think. But we can use anything from that library in our dance and not having to ask for extra. So we tell the kids, either use that, or you have somebody that you know write music and perform music for you. So, or you have to go and get the rights yourself, but that's complicated and expensive sometimes. So yes, we want to do more, and those are the only limitation. And sometimes if you in the future say, why didn't you do this play, or this musical, it might be that. It might be that it got up. And in some cases, we had thought about a different musical, and it was the craziest thing. I forgot what it was now. And they told us, because their website say, oh, we can grant rights for streaming. And then we say, great, fantastic, we want them. Oh, but we only give them to high schools, not colleges. So I don't know why, but they were adamant. They wouldn't budge on that. So we had to change what we were doing, basically. It's a crazy world. If you deal with copyrights and grant rights, it's a crazy world.
All right, next question. Are there any plans for music performances this semester?
Not for large ensembles or things like that. We basically already have a production calendar, which would be impossible to subvert right now. But I certainly hope that the people who come back to campus will be able to do something. And I'm hesitant to say anything because I thought we were coming back in August and then we didn't. Right now, I'm actually more hopeful that we'll be back after spring break. Right now, we're trying to figure out how many people will come back. I know, for example, in dance, we have a very large number of students who are living near campus, and they're chomping at the bit to be back. So I know that. I don't have the same sense for music or theater. We are doing a bit of a survey of the students to figure out, are you planning to come back or not, so we can adapt to that.
All right, moving over to theater for a little bit, for a couple questions. Are you all going to have auditions for spring theater performances? And will you need to be living at Chapman to be involved?
You mean for fall performances? We already have the spring performances set up.
Yeah.
Usually what you're referring to is that we have spring auditions for the fall performances, and then in the fall we have auditions for the spring. So freshmen usually cannot audition for the fall because they're not on campus. The faculty is thinking about that because obviously that's, they want to make sure that being on campus won't be the deciding factor. So they are really thinking. We did auditions for all the applicants online, and they figure it out pretty well. So I think that's the way we're going to be going, because we can't expect that if somebody is not coming back that we can cut them out. I think that that's going to be a given, that we'll figure it out. And it would be too late in a way to have auditions, other than maybe for the first play would be too late to do them at the beginning of the fall. So we need to know in advance. We start working on costumes and all that. So it would be impossible to wait. All right.
Okay. Next theater question is, how will students in theater be able to make up practicum credits they missed with no in-person performances?
Some of them have gotten some practicum credit, and we're working on that too. I don't want to penalize anybody. It's a little bit like, if you look at accreditation requests, in accreditation standards, there are some in music and theater and dance that say, oh, you need to do those things, right? We all know, including the accrediting agencies, that during the pandemic, we can't do some of those things. And so there's either, an impossible solution, which is to say, I'm sorry, you have to do them and stay on a little longer. That's not going to happen. The reality, the pragmatic reality is that people will take that and say, okay, let's see how we can accommodate that. Let's see how we can get credit and so on. But I can just about guarantee that nobody will be penalized because it wasn't their fault at all. And it wasn't anything that any individual student could do anything about. So, you know, it would be like saying, well, you really didn't play in the orchestra this year, so you have to stay another year to have 2 semesters of orchestra. Ain't gonna happen. I mean, we're not gonna do that. Um, and everybody, including the accrediting agencies, understand so that if we are when we have the next accreditation visit, they're not gonna say, how come this year you didn't do this and that?
All right. Okay, we're gonna dance over to dance. Pardon me for a question. Do you think dancers will be able to partner, touching each other in the spring or fall?
In the fall, definitely, I think. That's my thinking. In the spring, I don't know. Right now, what we try to do is to have only a few. The pod, by the way, is a little loose in that there are kids who might not live together, but for example, you're not living together, but you're dating. I think the least of your concern is the contact that you have during dancing, right? There's a lot more that goes on. So we wouldn't worry about that. There's a really cute dance that these 3 dancers did all inside their apartment. And, you know, they lived there, so there was touching, there were a lot of stuff like that. So we'll try to do it. Certainly, I think by the fall, it would be okay. For the spring, it might be limited, but I can tell you because so much of that is dependent on which tier we're gonna be in California for Orange County. Right now, we're in the purple, most restrictive. Everything points to us going to red relatively soon. I'm hoping that this continues to develop pretty quickly.
Okay, back to theater for a second. Do you anticipate theater students will be able to take the London trip in 2022?
I certainly hope so. It's a wonderful, it's really a wonderful experience. I know I talked to the students coming back, and you know, so many of them describe it as kind of life-changing. It's amazing what I've learned, the whole, you know, you can imagine, right? So I know it's a labor of love for the faculty. It's something that the students really want. And, you know, I don't see by 2022, by the spring of 2022, that the situation, you know, unless there's some catastrophe, but I don't think the situation would be such that we cannot take that trip. So I certainly am planning on that happening. And for those of you who are not in theater, all the theater performance major, not the screen actor, the theater performance major, go for a semester to London. They take courses which are taught by people in the National Theatre and so on. They are courses vetted by Chapman, so they don't lose anything in terms of progress towards a degree, but they also get to see plays, they get to master classes, they do side trips, and it's an amazing experience. They do things like getting a certificate in stage fighting, which actually it's a little easier in London because the risk management is not quite as sort of oppressive maybe as they are over here, and they do it very safely. But they come back and they stay over there. It's all covered by the tuition. I think they have to pay just for the actual plane and pocket money for the airfare and pocket money. So it's an amazing program. We want to continue and expand it if anything.
All right, I think those are all the questions we have till now. Is there anybody else that has any lingering questions or any, anything else that they want to ask?
Can you talk about that? By the way, it's, you know, Dr. Atherton is just about my age, maybe a year or so older, and I'm turning 70 this year, so you know, that's an age that you start thinking maybe at some point I should retire and not stick around till I'm 90. So that was totally normal. He's, you know, there there were some things I think perfectly understandable. He says he spends a lot of time, as you know, he's a very dedicated individual. He spends a lot of time. If you work with opera, you do spend a lot of time with opera on campus. He's here all the time. And not unsurprisingly, he says, Julie, his wife, Julie and I really would like to have some time and to travel and to do things before, something happens or we're too old or anything like that. And so I understand completely. It's a phased retirement. It's going to be here one more year to teach his students that will be senior next year. And then he's retiring in 2022 completely. But replacing him is one of the priorities. And because right now it's a little bit difficult to recruit, the plan is to have a 1-year replacement next year, and I'm working on that. But to have an open sort of search next year that will be an extensive national search and international if need be, so that we can get the best person. So I even in the discussions I've had for the replacement, we're getting people who are really good. But one of the first things I said to them is that nothing personal, but next year we'll have a search. Because even if you're fantastic, maybe we'll hire you, but we need to have the search to make sure that we get absolutely the best person for the job. Opera is one of the big things, and somebody had asked me about the magic flute, and I'm sorry, I realized I didn't answer that. I certainly hope that maybe someday we can go back and do something like that. But I think now that we have the idea of how to do certain things and how we have kind of open up our mind for that, I think we're gonna, if we don't do that performance, we will do something else equally amazing in Moscow.
Great. All right. Are there any other unasked questions out there that you would like to hear from Giulio about, or anything about CoPA, the future, current productions? Fire away. That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, I answer them then. As you all know, I mean, let me put something in the chat. Sorry, takes me a second.
And again, we'll make this recording available for all of you that are here, and if you know any other current parents that were unable to attend.
That's my email.
Sure.
And some of you have written me in the past. Please write me anytime you want. If I don't have the answer, I'll find out. But I always try to answer everybody with questions. Sometimes I can't answer to your satisfaction, but I try to answer, and I try to make sure that you know what's going on. Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying. Wow, the faculty has really taken that and said, okay, we're gonna do, no excuses, basically. We're gonna do the best job we can. And they've done a tremendous job. And I see it both in the times when I've had a chance to interact with students, and also I've seen it from student evaluations. Because I saw some of the comments that were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what he did. And I can't believe, I had the best comment, and that was from, it's a parent, but it's a parent who teaches theater at a very nice high school. And this parent dropped in one of the theater classes by Michael Naring to see, because her daughter was saying, this is really amazing, he's really good. And she came away and she says, I was blown away. And this is somebody who teaches theater at a high level. Says, I was blown away with what Michael Naring was doing. So I'm tremendously proud of all of them, because it would have been easy to spend a lot of time complaining. They did not. They just got to work. Oh, absolutely. Dance, what can I say? I saw the fall dance and I thought, how can, amazing. It was above and beyond my expectations. It's another group of faculty that just got together and decided, okay, what do we do here? What do we do there? What do we have to do to brainstorm and make sure that this happens at a certain level? I couldn't be more proud of what everybody has done. especially in the performing arts, because I think that we've been hit hard, and the industry has been hit hard. People, everything is shut down, and so there was a sense that you could sit there and be really depressed about it, or you could do the work. And our faculty really sat down and said, okay, this is how we do it. And they did it for the students, because honestly, they care about the students. So that is what makes me proud. So, all right, thank you so much. I really appreciate spending some time with you. And I hope next time we do it in person, huh? We do it on campus, and we'll celebrate being in person. I'm really dying to be together with people and be able to be in a different environment.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks.